Okay, so this is how to warm up your spinal engine, right? So the spinal engine is the degree to which your back or different sections of the back contraction into or move you through your awareness. And so it's a little bit like a paddle. So you want to go through each section of the spine and make sure that it's capable of basically thrusting in any direction. So you're looking at like everything from your sacrum and your hips and treating that as if it's the end of a paddle and using that to traction into the space. And so ultimately you want to be doing that with the entire body, but to like warm up, or if you're injured or distracted, you can focus in on a certain area. So I'm going to focus in on warming up my low back and my hips. And so I'm just looking to, all these joints can kind of flex or bow or push. And so I'm figuring out how to push sideways with them as if they're the end of a paddle. Like when you pull off of a paddle, that whole surface area shifts. And you can do it on the floor. And again, so I'm really only focusing in on turning this area right here into a paddle. And then I can start to move up the back. So I'll go between my lumbar and my thoracic. It's for me a traditionally tight area, or an area that I don't power my movements from. And so since I'm learning to use this area as the surface of the paddle, right, I learned to power my movement engine from this area. So I want to keep working that area actually, but for the sake of time, we'll move up into like this area and try and get that warmed up. So I think I have a lot of dysfunction from there to there. So I work on that for a long time, but then we'll go to head and neck. So by then, the whole spinal engine has been kind of warmed up to where you're comfortable with any part of the back pushing, right? Like my skeleton's here, and I'm gonna push. And then, so that push is gonna be as if I'm underwater and pushing against the medium. And then that's the spinal engine. And so that's, if you can find the spinal engine, you can walk, and then that's, if you feel it, then that's what would let you start to do more things. So that's the center of athletic movement, is driving everything with the spinal engine and not with the limbs. And so if you're doing a thing where you're like bracing your torso, which is like a mentality that I was taught, like anything somewhere you're like bracing your back, you're disabling the spinal engine and just like shutting it off and turning it into an object, and then moving the back with the leg or the arm engine, and that makes you retarded. Because this is the biggest freaking muscle in the body. So no matter what you're squatting with, you would never want to repeatedly train with something so much that it shuts your back down and freezes your back posture, or makes it uncomfortable for you to utilize the whole back under load. Like for training purposes, you would never want to overload or disable that system with like heavy weight. And people do that all the time to whatever build. That not having that there and having this whole system be weak is why people get injuries underneath or inside their, your shoulder or back or whatever. It's become like if the back is trained correctly, like the whole thing is just moving so much all the time. And I know I was taught in a way where it was just like a rigid, like monobone almost. But when the back engine is on, the way that it drives is the same way that it would if you were underwater and you needed to like imagine you're an octopus or something, and you need to go really quick. You push everywhere, like you're already in contact with the medium, ready to. The whole thing pushes like that, instead of it being a thing where you're pushing into the floor. You're pushing into the water, and the water is surrounding all the effort. The water is surrounding all the exertion. So you can't push into the water, and when people do that, they're in flow state, or they look appropriately athletic, because that's what's going on. Whether people intellectually understand it or not. And it's intuitively understood, and when like pathologies or different types of like injury or body morphology, loss of control, like if you lose control of your shape or you're getting injuries or whatever, it's usually not something that you have to learn. That happens when you learn something false about the situation or false about yourself. It misdirects your effort and it misdirects your attention, and you'll like train really, really, really hard and then leave out something like the spinal engine and just kind of cover that up with bracing instead of like how do I keep it